Hello everyone, how's it going? My name is Jordan Orell, and here's another daily video on circumcision. So today I'd like to talk about sort of the spiritual significance of circumcision, which goes back a long way, of course. In biblical times, it was well understood that circumcision is a sacrifice. It's a religious sacrifice of part of the child's genitals. And there's sometimes in the Bible spoken of the circumcision of the heart, which is supposed to, in Christianity, replace circumcision. As anyone who knows about circumcision in Christianity, it's been forbid in it throughout time. I believe it was Paul, no, maybe John, who said, if you're circumcised, Christ will be of no use to you. So basically, circumcision is bad according to Christians. But circumcision of the heart, on the other hand, which is to say, sort of not being attached to pleasure, in the same way that cutting off the foreskin is said to be, cutting off that excess pleasure so that you can focus more on God, because it's the most sensitive, most pleasurable part of the penis. So of course, cutting it off is a religious way of suppressing that sexuality and focusing on God, both female and male circumcision. And so that's kind of been a lot of the way of thinking about circumcision throughout all time. It's also another way of thinking of this, I think, is it's exposing the glands, and it's religiously a way of exposing yourself, of opening yourself up. And so that's another way to think of this traditional sort of religious significance of it. And what's interesting is I think that throughout time, this way of thinking about it has been has kind of fit with the ideologies of the cultures that perpetuate it. So sexuality has been thought of as bad, and so it's okay to repress that in order to focus on the good. But today we don't really believe that anymore, and so we've had to come up with these sort of medical, pseudo-medical, not really kind of nonsensical reasons for doing circumcision that just don't make any sense, because we were already doing it because of those same religious sort of reasons that we started doing it in America during the Victorian era. Today, however, I think that we're reaching a very different reason, not reason for circumcising, but actually we're dropping circumcision as a practice. And I think that circumcision represents, for our time, a transformation, because it's now a very painful thing, because we're realizing how destructive it is. We have enormous access to information, which is a deep transformation of our actually what we can be, of our spirit, of our potential, because we have access to so much information, so much ability to communicate, so much ability to learn and grow through these channels of the information age, that one of the ways that we're growing is we're learning the harm, we're learning the trauma of circumcision, and a lot of men are really, really, really upset by understanding what the foreskin really is, and the fact that part of their genitalia has basically been sacrificed to a god they may not even believe in, or for most Americans, it's like it wasn't even supposedly done for God. It was medical. It's so covered over in all this layers of bullshit. But it still can have spiritual significance, actually, is what I want to say. Because I believe that, as Carl Jung said, the amount that you're willing to face your shadow, the darkness, the pain inside you, is how great you can be. So circumcision is one of the worst things that can happen to a person. Female or male genital mutilation. We understand it very well about female genital mutilation. Like, there's not much worse you can do to a person than cut off a woman's clitoris. But the foreskin is a close analogy. I mean, even the kinds of nerve endings in it, and the concentration of nerve endings, it's very similar. A foreskin is basically like a guy's clitoris. It's the most sensitive, like best, most pleasurable part of his dick. And he's lost that, and it is equally horrifying once you really understand the amount of pleasure that a man has lost. And so what I get excited about is the fact that we have a huge opportunity here now, as men are continually finding out more and more about this, and this is, like, I believe the most rapidly growing issue in our time right now, because, as I've said in a previous video, so many people care so much about this, are so passionate about it. It's changing really fast, and it's only going in one direction, and there's a lot of media being created and released around this, and very soon a lot of men are going to experience a lot of trauma around this, besides the hidden trauma that's already there from having part of your genitals very violently and painfully amputated. Apart from that, finding out about that and about the harm that was done is a crazy level of trauma, an identity-changing level of trauma that really most men, I think, probably aren't ready to face that. Maybe some are. I think some definitely are, and very few are willing to face it all the way to really feel into that pain. And I think it's really true. The deeper you go into that pain, the more you're willing to embrace that and let that affect you, and let that suffering actually burn away the, it's a sort of circumcision of the heart in a way, that actually we're talking about here, because it's this extreme pain that cuts away all excess ego, all excess sort of things that don't matter. Like, you realize when you see how horrible this is that there's a lot of things that we focus on that just don't matter nearly as much as the fact that you're missing the best part of your dick. Not many things matter that much. And for me in my life, it certainly has transformed me, and allowed me to work harder and more and smarter than I ever thought I could, in a way, because it's like it really, really centers you when you have this thing that hurts you so bad that you want your foreskin so bad, and it's possible to get it. It really is. We can regenerate it. The science is there, as Foragen has talked about. We really could regenerate this. It's just a matter of funding, quite simply. And so anyone could go and make this happen, but it's really a matter of taking that really seriously and being willing to feel that pain, know what you've lost, understand that fully, and then come from that place of having burned away the things that don't matter. And it's not easy, it's not fun, it's really painful to truly face this. It can change your identity, who you are, to understand that something this traumatic, this horrible has happened to you. So it's not for everybody, but I do believe there will be at least a small number of men who do find healing for this, who do work through that pain, who are willing to completely feel that trauma and go into the depths of it, and from that depth bring up the treasure of transformation, of strength, of power, of empathy for all the people who are hurting because of this, and the ability to be really, really, really true. You can't be true if you're repressing part of yourself and you're kind of trying not to think about something and your attention's half over here. But if you've really gone to the center core of this darkness, it has a way of really centering you. And I'm still going into that and learning from that and growing from that. And it's helping me to transform my life. And I can't wait to continue being a bigger and bigger part of this movement as it succeeds more and more. So, yeah. It's not, as all spiritual transformation, it's not a pleasant thing necessarily. It's not like super fun or great. It sounds cool, but when you actually are facing it, it's if you really get the trauma, if you've really experienced it that deeply, you can't want it. You can't actually even wish for that in a way. If you know how bad it is, then you you can't want it because it destroys everything that you are. You think it'll give you something, but anyways, it's hard to explain. But it's exciting what the end result is. I do believe that everything happens for a reason. At least everything happens for a reason if we make it happen for a reason. And so I think that this will happen for a reason, and I think that the result is going to be very, very good. Even though it's one of the worst things that could happen to us as a species, to mutilate our children's genitals, there's not much worse. But we will find the way forward. And it's gonna be good. So thanks for watching, guys. As always, I will talk to you again tomorrow. Peace out.